This is a Vox recording on the story of the 19th Primarch, Corvus Corax. My name is Varek Garek of the First Company, and I have served in the Raven Guard when Corax was reunited with his legion. Now sit down and listen well to the legendary story of Corax, which is one of shadows and rebellion. When Corax was found, he was found in a lightless cave in the metal capsule on the moon of Kieva called Lycanus. When he first saw people, he gained consciousness, and when the prisoners saw this, they saw it as a sign from higher powers. The prisoners took him in to hide him from the overseers. After he ripped the head off one, after he saw the overseer hit a little girl, and it enraged him. He was cared for as best he could by the prisoners who didn't have much, and he cared for them. He learned everything from the regular people to the hardened criminals who hated the overseers and their tech guild masters and were excited to teach him skills. From these lessons, he was able to learn how to observe his enemy and wait for the perfect time to strike. Sometime during a surprise inspection, he learned he could hide himself from the human eye, even though he was a massive being. This new skill allowed my gene father to go where we could not and learn from different prisons on the moon, and eventually he and my fellow prisoners rose up and killed the overseers. After Corvus led us and taken over Lycanus and the prisons, we soon discovered the atomic charges in the vaults, and soon before he launched them against the tech guilds, he arrived. The Emperor of Mankind arrived to reclaim his son, and they talked, but no one knew what was said between them, and then the Emperor left. Corax defeated the tech guilds, and soon after he became known as the Liberator. But eventually he told me an important lesson from the rebellion, is that sometimes the innocent must suffer for the sake of all. When the Imperium returned, a new group was introduced, which was the Mechanicus. They took over dealing with the remaining tech guilds that survived the nuclear charges and bringing new technology to our system. Alongside them, of course, was the Raven Guard Legion. When I first saw them, I felt dread just being near them. I immediately joined the Legion because they needed recruits, and as long as I could serve Corax, then I would go through anything to be next to him. The surgery was the worst pain that I ever felt in my life. My body was ripped open and the genetic material of Corax was implanted in me alongside the other organs of a space marine. And when I left that table, I was born anew, and I truly felt the power of being a space marine for the first time. When I saw my Primarch dressed in his armor, I felt hope and wonder about what we would encounter during the Great Crusade, and I was glad to serve alongside my fellow brothers that I grew up with as well. I was told that the Imperium had been in the Great Crusade for over 100 years when Corax was found, and when he gained command over his legion, he taught the Terran-born Raven Guard how to wage his kind of warfare. Also, when he learned the history of the cold-blooded ways of the Xeric tribes in the Legion, he got rid of the brutal Marines and put a lot into the lower parts of the Legion. The worst were sent off into the void in exile, and as time went on we forgot about them, but I still remember them because they reminded me of the slave lords of my home world. Corax led his legion through a few campaigns, but it was not important to truly remember. But when we arrived in the Esfand system, I remembered it as one of the more memorable parts of the Great Crusade. I was a part of the scout fleet that found the human empire of the system, and we did negotiate with them, but it did not work. We were going to just let one of the other destructive legions deal with this, but we were ordered to take the system because the tech here was a goldmine for the Mechanicus to study. When Corax arrived in system, he was briefed on the issue and he gave orders out to his squads to use stealth, sabotage, and assassination to cripple the leadership of the system. I was a part of a task force for Esfand 3 and was tasked with hunting the military leaders and infrastructure of the military and when we finished, we joined the main force of the Raven Guard, led by my lord Corax himself. When I saw him in combat, he was like a shadow slicing through the Isfanian military, and he made the remaining leaders surrender to him when he encountered them. We stayed in the system for a time, waiting for the proper people to take over, and that is when I met the Primarch face to face for the first time. It was a quick conversation when I was asked to inform him about the arrival of another Imperial fleet to take over, but I talked to one of his closest advisors, Agapito Nev. But Corax was in the room, and he talked to me for some time. Shortly after that, the Legion moved on to another war zone, and I served alongside the other legions of Space Marines, and as time went on, I joined the first company of the Raven Guard, and I served alongside Corvus Corax, but in the background. I was looking through my scope when he confronted the Night Haunter when he was killing his own Marines, and from personal experience, the Night Lords and their Gene Father are the exact opposite of the Raven Lord and the Raven Guard. I could tell that Corax hated him, and he felt that he could have been like him without the people caring for him. Because Conrad was a twisted man who never should have led his legion. He never should have left his planet. He should have died in that place. His sons were the same as their twisted father, and I could tell you they were cowards and took pleasure in torturing the weak and innocent. After some campaigns, Corax and the Legion had a joint campaign with the Space Wolves, Lunar Wolves, and Iron Warriors, each with their Primarchs leading them. This war zone was near the Ghoul Stars. The only battle that I remember when I fought alongside my Primarch and brothers was at the Gate 42 battle, and this battle was a rough one for the 19th. Horus was recently given the title of War Master, and he ordered my father to assault the gate, but instead of our normal type of warfare, we were ordered to a frontal assault, which was what we were not accustomed to. Corax fought against this, but he was encouraged by his brother Lehman, and instead of sending the Lycanus-born Marines, he sent the more brutal Terran-born Marines to grind down the enemy. Even as my Terran-born brothers were getting slaughtered by the defenders of Gate 42, I sensed that Corvus grew to resent his brother, and I was told he never wanted to fight alongside Horus and his legion ever again. As I watched the battle through my scope, I felt the pain of seeing a big part of our strike force being killed, and I agree with the Primarch on not fighting alongside the War Master in the future. After the battle, while we were battered and recovering, Horus was bathed in the glory of taking over Gate 42. And when I saw my Primarch, I sensed his bitterness for Horus. Sadly, I was sent away to assist another legion, while Corax and the Raven Guard faced the Eldar in the Scowland sector. But I got the Corvus Corax pattern armor, which was awesome, but I was injured. I was saved by the Raven Guard apothecary Kex Kor, who eventually became one of my best friends, but he was killed during the Kievari rebellion against the Alpha Legion infiltrators and the Techlords. When I heard that Corax rebelled against the Emperor, the entire Legion, and alongside the Iron Hands, Salamanders, Alpha Legion, Word Bearers, Night Lords, and Iron Warriors were sent to Isfahan. Our job was to destroy the traitors, but the result was far worse for the first wave. Corax led us alongside the Salamanders and the Iron Hands, with their Primarchs leading them as well. I was alongside Corax for some time, but I was separated during the first engagement. By the time I was reunited with my squad, we were retreating, and I was drenched in mud and blood. I also saw that the Iron Hands had lost their Primarch because I had caught a glimpse of Ferris's lifeless body on the ground. As the first wave had ran back to the reinforcements, I was so close to Corax, but I felt that something was off. And the first thing that I noticed was that the vox comms of the other legions were silent. Another thing as well was that they were just standing there, all in a line, as we approached the battered and bloodied from the first engagements. The true hell began. The hell started when a flare was shot up behind our reinforcements, and soon after that we were fired upon, and the first few seconds felt like 2 hours. I saw half of my squad get gunned down, and I was covered in their blood. The last time I saw Corax was him charging the lines of the word bearers. Later, I was informed when I reunited with him that he messed up Lorgar and was about to kill him, but Kurz interfered, forcing my Gene Father to retreat. As we left the orbit of Istvan, Corax was put into stasis to heal from the battle, and when he awoke, he then ordered the ship to go to Terra to inform the Emperor of what happened. When Corax talked to his father, he had returned with a huge amount of the pure gene seed of the Raven Guard Legion. We returned to Deliverance with haste to rebuild our legion, and we created pure Raven Guard Marines. They were called the Raptors. Sadly, this didn't last long, because soon after this, we had to deal with Alpha Legion infiltrators who had sabotaged the gene seed, which created mutated Raven Guard. When the Alpha Legion began their attack, the old tech guilds joined in the fight against us because they wanted the old times to return. I was tasked with eliminating the Alpha Legion reinforcements who arrived on Kievar, and fighting them was hard, but with our Primarch there, we knew we had a chance. We were losing though, and from this, Corax released the mutated raptors from their cells, and they ripped the rebels apart. When the battle was over, we did a damage report of our fortress and the ships we still had. While we waited, we put the raptors back in their cells for their own protection. Then, the Space Wolves arrived. They tried to assassinate Horus, but failed. They retreated, and Lehman Russ was injured during the duel with Horus. Corax allowed the wolves to recover at the Raven Spire, and he watched over his brother while he was recovering. One time I walked by and I heard him speak to his brother with a sadness in his voice. Lehman woke up, and shortly after that, the line arrived at Deliverance with his legion. The three brothers talked about gathering their legions and all making a run to Terra to assist the Loyalists. Corax told his brothers that he won't go, but he did send a small force of Raven Guard alongside the two other legions. I was a part of the strike force because I wanted to see the throne world and of course assist in killing the traitors. But before I left the Raven Spire, I ran into Corax, who was on his way to deal with the raptors, and I knew that he would be put in my other misery. Because for some time, I knew that the Imperium would be changed forever and the raptors would be hunted down. So Corax would put them down. As I said my goodbyes to my father, I could tell that Corax was going to fall into depression, and I couldn't be there to grieve with him. I was told when I returned that he went to each of their cells and snapped their necks, which is the best death he could give them. Upon hearing that, I shed a tear for them, because I loved them, because they were my brothers. After I returned to the Raven Spire, after fighting the traitors on Terra, and some engagements on the Void while they retreated back to the Eye of Terror, I was briefed that our father locked himself in his chambers. He stayed in his chambers for a year and eventually left his chambers and said to his sons, "Nevermore," and left the Raven Spire forever. I was so saddened by the news that I contracted the Sable brand, and whenever I was with my remaining squad, I was distant and didn't care to live. I wanted death. I still have the Sable brand from the news of Corax's departure from us. Now, I think the end is near for me, and I just hope my father will return and reunite his sons just like when he led us during his time with us. Now, I am in a dark ship that is in the warp with demons running around, killing the crew and my brothers. They are so close that I can hear them, and the Sable brand has gotten even worse now. My heart's hurt with sadness. My armor is damaged, my weapons are blunt, and my ammo is nearly out. I know my death is near. I just wanted to remember my father and relive my memories with him and my brothers before I die. One thing that I have accepted long ago was that everything must come to an end, good or bad. I am glad to have been born on Lycanus, and I am proud to have been a gene set of Corvus Corax. So if anyone found this Vox recording, this is the story of Corvus Corax, the liberator of Deliverance. This is Verek Garecki, son of Corvus Corax, signing off for the last time. Victorious aut mortis.